Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's great to see all of you here on this very snowy morning. We appreciate you making the long slog through traffic to get here. These are tough days, but these are the best days. We love having snow, and we're working on filling the lake, and Mother Nature is doing her part today, and so we're grateful for that. I'm especially excited to be joined today. You'll notice we've got some people here with us. On my right, we have Brandy Grace, who is the Executive Director of the Utah Association of Counties. We welcome her. On my left, we have Joanne Smith, who is the Executive Vice President and Chief People Officer of Delta Airlines, and we'll be hearing from her shortly. She does need to leave shortly after speaking, so we'll excuse her. So thank you so much. And of course, Commissioner Dave Wolstenhume is here joining us with higher ed. Now, the reason I wanted to bring you all here together is to talk a little bit about a bill that was passed last year. I want to recognize Representative Norm Thurston and his great work and talk about how we have fully implemented that bill. But far too often, degrees have become a blanketed barrier to entry in too many jobs that don't need to be. Instead of focusing on demonstrated competence, the focus has often become on a piece of paper. But the tide is turning. Now, nationally, a number of businesses have let out to remove minimum education requirements for initial employment. In addition, earlier this year, my friend Governor Hogan in Maryland eliminated the requirement in his state government. And between May and August, Maryland saw a 41% increase in the number of non-4-year degree hires. And thanks to the good work, as I mentioned, of Representative Thurston, Utah has prohibited minimum educational requirements for employment, except when a minimum education qualification is legally required to perform the job duties. Now, the state executive branch has 1,080 different classified jobs. Of those, 98% do not require a degree. That's 1,058 different roles that are options for Utahns that don't have degrees. Now, we always want to hire, and we do hire, the most qualified candidate. But we have worked hard to ensure that we view commensurate experience and skills that candidates have acquired with the position. When we've got jobs to fill, the state of Utah now reduces barriers to hiring by removing bias towards educational requirements that cannot be tied to specific job duties and requirements. This is for both internal as well as external candidates. We ask our hiring managers and hiring committees to consider comparable experiences as equal to educational qualifications at every step in the evaluation and recruiting process. We ensure that job postings and descriptions use inclusive language and focus on the essential requirements and qualifications necessary to perform the job. This has broadened access to qualified talent and expanded employment opportunities to attract diverse candidates, including underrepresented groups. This means more jobs for candidates in rural areas. This means more opportunities for those returning to work after an extended absence through our returnship program. And it means leveraging our internal resources from the Department of Workforce Services, such as our apprenticeship programs in functional areas such as IT, healthcare, electrical, and others. And on-the-job training that offers reimbursements to employers who offer customized training to eligible participants. Now, I want to be clear about a couple things. Certainly, there is value in pursuing a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, or a doctorate degree. And we are fortunate to have the best system of higher education anywhere in the country, the best universities, the best colleges, and we are grateful for the services that they provide. And I highly recommend them to anyone who can attain them. They are wonderful and will help you throughout your life. But a degree should not be the only way to get a good paying job and have a fulfilling career. We appreciate the support and good work of local governments, our system of higher education, and the private sector in removing this paper ceiling. I appreciate the innovative efforts toward lifelong learning, multiple credential paths, apprenticeship programs led by both our post-secondary institutions and the private sector. But this is just a start, and we know that we can do more. I've said this many times that a bachelor's degree is not for everyone. It's this idea that we've had as a nation over the past 40 years that every kid needs a bachelor's degree is bad for our kids and it's bad for our economy. I'm so tired of talking to a parent and asking them how their son or daughter is doing, and having them start by trying to explain away why they're not at one of our universities and instead are at one of our technical colleges, our UTech institutions, or that they decided to become a welder or a coder. I celebrate those. We should not be looking down on those types of opportunities. Every one of our children is unique. Every one of them has different competencies, and we should be making spaces for those competencies. And that's really what we're here to talk about today, is that there are different ways to learn, there are different ways to get an education, and there are different experiences that people have had. By simply putting a degree there, where it is not required or necessary, and in some cases, again, does not give you the actual knowledge you need to accomplish the job, we are doing a disservice to everyone in our state. So we are very proud. Again, I want to thank Representative Thurston for his efforts. I want to thank our team for fully implementing that vision and making it possible for everyone to use. Again, we want to look at competency. What is it that you are trained to do? What is it that you know how to do, and who are the best people in the state to accomplish those jobs? We are fortunate to have incredible state employees. We love our state employees. It's one of the reasons we're pushing so hard in this next legislative session to make sure that we get some significant increases in funding to pay for our state employees who are doing wonderful work and blessing the lives of Utahns everywhere that they go. And we want to make sure that we are doing our taxpayers and our citizens right by hiring the very best possible employees. And that is not always evident by just some initials after their name or a piece of paper. Now, with that, I'm very excited to introduce Joanne Smith, as I mentioned, the Executive Vice President and Chief People Officer of Delta Airlines. She flew in specifically to share their experience with us. So thank you for making that effort, Joanne, and we'll turn the microphone over to you.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you, Governor Cox, for inviting us here and allowing us to be a part of this conversation, which is so vital and to the work we're doing right now. And I did fly in from Atlanta for this concert, but I wanted to also say that we're so delighted we have 500 of our employees at the beautiful hotel downtown Grand America, and they are with a number of our Delta leaders, and we are focusing this conference on developing and growing our internal group of talent. So it's pretty opportunity. We're also delighted to be here in Salt Lake City, and what a joy it is for me personally to come here. And it's snowing and it's beautiful, and the flights are going to operate because you do a great job here at clearing snow. So unlike Atlanta. So I will. We're better now. I really want to thank you. It's Salt Lake City is vital to our network and our mission of connecting the world. We have about 5,000 employees based here in Salt Lake City of our 90,000 global team, and they do a tremendous job for us. So we're delighted to be here. I mean, I think you delivered my remarks brilliantly, which is skills first. I mean, focusing on skills and competencies, because we know that we need to do that to build this diverse workforce that is capable of delivering our ambitious business goals of premium service, great customer service, and growing our international network as well. And I think that, millions of Americans being left behind because of this barrier of a four-year degree. And as the governor said, it's not that we are not looking for the best qualified candidate to fill our jobs, but that was a barrier and we looked in a hard look at ourselves. And we've been on this journey since 2019, when we looked at close to 4,000 job descriptions and said, what are the real skills and competencies needed? And we eliminated the four-year degree from 90%, not 98%. So I really do congratulate you on that, but 90% or over of our jobs. And so we re-credentialed, we rewrote those job descriptions and started this journey. Pandemic hit. But in the last year and a half, we've hired 30,000 new people at Delta, and including here in Utah and Salt Lake, 1,000 new employees. And what Skills First allows us to look at is not just for the external candidates, as the governor mentioned, but it's growing the talent pipelines from within. And studies show that focusing on skills and competencies rather than just a degree or just only a degree really is 5 times more a better predictor of success and how someone is going to do in the role. So I think with that kind of epiphany and the track that we're on, we're really excited about our journey that we're on. We are closing equity gaps. We are eliminating barriers to career and the success, and we're growing from within too to meet the need of the future. We started an apprenticeship program last year, or early this year, I'm sorry, I'm already in 2023, earlier this year, and our leaders across the business began hiring from our own talent pools, whether they came from the airports or flight attendants or reservation customer care, and they're having jobs in revenue management, being analysts. And what the leaders are telling us that these employees that have learned the business and where we were hiring for 4-year degrees previously are doing a better job because they know the business, they're passionate about Delta, and they're kind of craving to learn more. And so that's just, so from an original 100 apprenticeship programs we were going to create, we know we're going to double that next year and creating those opportunities for our internal candidates. So another one I just want to mention that was such an eye-opener is we used to have a 4-year degree for pilots. We don't anymore. And that is you don't need a 4-year degree to receive the skills you need to fly an airplane. So as the governor said, this is not saying we're not, really focusing on the best qualified candidates and not doing a rigorous vetting process to make sure we're hiring the best, but no longer counting on only the 4-year degree as that barrier. It's widely opening up the aperture. So with that, I just want to say thank you again for inviting me. I want to congratulate you and commend you on the great work that you're doing. It's what we as leaders have to all get behind. And again, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Welcome, everybody. It's great to be here with you today, and I couldn't think of a better opportunity to be with you than to really discuss the value of credentials. Governor, I know the snow is going to fill the lakes, but it's also going to make for some really nice skiing. So that's the way I like to look at it when you're looking at the cold. Really, we're really fortunate to be in the state of Utah. As I visit with my counterparts across the country, they're having much different conversations. They're starting to have conversations of how they collapse institutions, how they shrink institutions. And I'm so glad we're having an opportunity to discuss the value of credentialing. And as the governor mentioned, I am a huge champion of technical education, and we have an opportunity in the state to really look at what it means to be able to be competent in the area that you need to be competent in. And our tech colleges do a wonderful job of that. Can we do better? Absolutely. What we need to make sure that we're doing better in is we look at our 4-year degrees. What can we do within those 4-year degrees where the job sectors looked at those degrees and determined it's a 4-year degree that's needed, but how do we pack those competencies in micro-credentials along the way so we don't have a student sitting in a classroom for 5 years before they can even go out and start an apprenticeship or an internship with an organization to be able to really start to take the things they're learning in the classroom and implement them within industry. We have some of our institutions that are really starting to do that, and I get excited about that, but it's not enough. What we really need to be looking at is what does industry need? If you think about it, in my mind, we have 2 customers in higher education. And if we don't get back to this, I think we're in trouble. It's the student and it's the industry that's hiring those students. And rather the industry needs the competencies, or rather they need a degree, to me is not that important for us as higher education. It's important to those 2 sectors, those 2 customers, the student and the industry. And so once we can work closer with the industry and identify what it is they need and then partner with them to make sure those needs are met, those 2 customers are being fulfilled. Not only are they being fulfilled, but their families are better taken care of. The economy in the state is much better taken care of, and education will continue to flourish. Right now, we have about 40% of our students, I hate even to share this statistic, but it's real. We have about 40% of our students 3 years out from the day they graduate from high school, taking into account their religion experience that they're going to have. A good share of our students, 40% of our students are not going on anywhere. to higher ed, whether that's public, whether that's private, whether that's tech, whether that's in-state, whether that's out-of-state, those individuals would be at one of our four institutions if they wanted to be. I'm a true believer that we need to create these other credentials and competencies, help them understand the value of them and how they can connect with our industry to make sure those individuals have an opportunity. I would like to recognize Chair Church. She's the chair of the Board of Higher Education, and she has really made us focus, and I'm really glad she has, on equity, diversity, and inclusion, and how we close that opportunity gap. That opportunity gap is going to come through credentials. That opportunity gap is going to come through what we're talking about today. It's connecting those individuals that should have the same opportunities as any other student, regardless of where they come from, what their life situation is. We have not done a good job in this state. We have not done a good job in higher education, and I take part of that blame to make sure those students have those same opportunities. I'm a firm believer those opportunities come through what we're talking about today. And we're committed, Governor, we're there with you. We appreciate you leading out on this. What I do think is really important for the institutions out there to hear is what the governor said. This is not devaluing the bachelor's degree. This is not devaluing a master's or a PhD degree. What we are saying is to be able to keep the economy going and give the citizens of the state of Utah what they need. We need to refocus. We need to redirect these other opportunities that have been overlooked for a long time and really start to build out what it is that our customers need. And remember, that's the student and the industry that's hiring those. Thanks for all your support.
Good morning. What an honor it is to be here today to support our governor in this effort. I'm not only honored to be here, but I am so excited and passionate about this effort. Why? Because this is my story. At just the young age of 20, I began my career in the public sector. With only a couple of college accounting courses on my resume, I was provided an opportunity to begin working in the county auditor's office. Throughout my career, I was given the opportunity by individuals who were willing to recognize my work performance and my learned skills, aside from the fact that I lacked a college degree. I believe that there are a few key skills that I possessed that provided me these opportunities. 1, a strong work ethic. 2, an ability to have good relationships with my colleagues. And 3, the desire that I have to perform well and to provide a good work product. These skills were not learned in the classroom, but instead were learned from growing up on a farm, where getting up early and working until the job was done were a must. I believe that my desire to perform well and to learn comes from my own life experiences. These are valuable skills that are marketable skills. 4 years ago, the Utah Association of Counties was searching for a new CEO. At that time, I was faced with the same question I had been faced with several times throughout my career. Do you hold a college degree? At that time, I was a current employee and had been appointed as interim CEO. The position and the skills that it required were top of mind for me and for the board of directors. But I knew that I possessed a unique set of skills that would be beneficial to our organization. At that time in my life, I adopted a mantra. Actually, I can. I knew that I could do the job. And today I'm proud to represent a thriving organization of dedicated public servants as their CEO. I want to thank those leaders who have been willing to recognize skills that aren't necessarily identifiable through some certification process, but rather through life lessons that have been learned. I'm appreciative and grateful for the opportunity that I have to serve and to represent that there are potentials for leadership opportunities, even for those who don't possess a certain certification or certain credentials. To those individuals, I want to say, consider your own life experiences. Think of the unique skills that you have learned through your own life. Those are marketable skills. Those are things that make us diverse. Those are things that create diversity in our organizations, that make us better as a state. To our county leaders, I want to encourage them to consider those unique qualifications that individuals have learned and to recognize those in their hiring practices. To others in the public sector and in the private sector, I encourage you to consider those throughout your hiring experiences. I also want to mention that through the Association of Counties, there was a rural online initiative that was launched through a legislative action a few years ago, where we have identified areas of our state where they could benefit from some online learning opportunities. These aren't necessarily degrees, but individuals have an opportunity to tap into learning experiences to help advance opportunities for them. These are unique things that we're doing as a state and as employing agencies that should be applauded. And with that, I want to thank the governor for his work in highlighting this effort. I'm excited to participate, excited to share the message, and excited to be a part of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandy. We are so grateful that the Utah Association of Counties removed that requirement for a degree for their executive director, and we're wise enough to choose you. I just want to synthesize a little bit some of what you've heard today and why it's so important. This is not just about no degrees and talent first when it comes to hiring. It is also about reimagining higher education. And I'm very grateful for Lisa Michelle Church and her team working with the commissioner as they are working with our presidents and our institutions across the state to rethink and reimagine higher education. There's something that really stuck out to me when Joanne was talking, and it goes back to a former governor from another state that I had a chance to talk to, and he was a pilot actually, and he said something that she said, that I don't care how much time our pilots have spent in a classroom. I only care if they can fly the damn plane. Those were his words. That's what he was most concerned about. And when we think about higher education, I think we have to reevaluate higher education and that value proposition. The incentive structure we have right now mostly encourages time in a seat, right? And discounts those life experiences as well. I have friends who, for whatever reason, didn't have an opportunity to go to college right out of high school. Life happens. Life is messy and life is difficult. And we have organized as a country a system of higher learning that very much incentivizes and rewards younger people who have an opportunity right out of high school to go to college, especially those that are a little more well-to-do, although we've gotten better at that. And if you don't get it in that small window of life, it gets so much more difficult. Right? And you get to a point, you've had all of these life experiences, maybe, again, work experiences, where you could actually teach the class. But we still make you go in and sit in that seat during the day, usually. And that's just not acceptable. We have to be able to meet people where they are. And when we talk about skills first or competency-based first, we should also be thinking about competency-based education. The ability for you to test out of those things that you already know, right? If a degree is going to be a marker as to what you've accomplished or what you've been able to learn, you've already learned those things, then you should be able to get that degree without going through those classes, assuming you already know the material. And so not only do we need to think the way we hire, but we need to think the way we do post-secondary education. Now, as the commissioner mentioned, we have pockets of that happening. And within our university system, again, within our UTech institutions, it is happening out there, but we need to start acting more as a system. And so you're going to see legislation this year and in the coming years as we work with our institutions of higher education, as we work with the Board of Higher Education here in our state to better align the incentive structure to get this right. So higher education becomes less expensive and more rewarding, and that our citizens have an opportunity to participate in this great economy. The last thing I just want to say is this: there is a side to education that is not just skill-based, and it is important. I want people to learn philosophy. I want people to learn ethics. I want people to become lifelong learners. And again, our system doesn't necessarily reward that right now. What we should have is a system of micro credentials where you are constantly building and learning. We need lifelong learners. This idea that you're going to go to college and learn everything you need for the next 30 or 40 years of your career is over. I mean, that was true in the 50s and 60s and 70s and maybe 80s. It is no longer true today. We need to be able to not just have this kind of holy grail of a degree, but this idea that we are constantly learning. As you move into a new role in your work, you should be able to go back to one of our institutions at night or on a weekend and get some new credentials that will help you as you move forward. So we're constantly engaging. Between the blending work and education together so that we all become smarter and better at what we do and who we are as human beings. And so I hope that no one takes this as us degrading education and learning. That is not the purpose of today. It's to elevate education and learning and understanding that education and learning comes in lots of different forms, and we should recognize those forms and we should reward those forms. So again, thank you so much for being here today. We have time for a couple questions. I do know that Joanne probably needed to leave 10 minutes ago, so we're going to usher her out, and don't feel bad at all. Thank you, and thanks to Delta. Thanks for joining us. We're happy to take any questions if there be any from our friends in the media or anyone else, please.
To what extent is this influenced by the ongoing labor shortage, and what agencies do you think this will most impact?
Sure. So it is impacted, no question that the labor shortage is something that we are thinking about constantly. It wasn't the impetus for this. Again, this bill was passed last year before we truly saw the depths of the labor shortage. But it is still very important and critical. Where will it impact us the most? That's a good question. I would say probably in a couple areas. The Department of Workforce Services, I think, is one for sure. Our new combined Department of Health and Human Services, I think, is another one. Tracy Gruber's here with us for sure. On the IT side, there is no question that we will see that piece of it. That's one area where we had lots of degree requirements, and again, we just need people who know how to do the job, who can know computers and programming and all of those things that our IT department needs. And so Alan Fuller, who's here with us, will be a big beneficiary of this as well. But really, I think every department in the executive branch will be impacted positively. Thank you. Any other questions?
What are some of the things that are going to be talked about regarding this issue in the upcoming legislative session?
Well, so as far as kind of on the higher ed side, I think what you'll see is us working closely with the board. They're going to be bringing some recommendations to us to look at how the system operates as a whole. We've made some changes. So we've been doing this kind of incrementally over time. One of the big changes we made, we used to have a board for our universities, and then we had a board for our technical institutions, right? So we blended those together. And again, that was both symbolic and I think practical in this idea that we wanted them to start working more closely together. So some of the ideas that we're working on is that you would have one application process for all of our institutions of higher learning. So you wouldn't have to fill out multiple applications. Again, making it easier for students and families to figure out what it is they want to do, reduce the barriers and the cost of getting into our institutions. How can we do that better? And then how do the institutions work as we start to specialize a little bit? The University of Utah and Utah State University are one. These are research institutions. They probably should look and act a little differently than some of our others, right? And so we should be looking at how they integrate and how do students move from one institution to another with micro-credentialing. Those are things we're trying to figure out right now that we haven't quite landed that plane. Other questions? Okay. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you to our partners who are helping to implement this. And please be careful as you drive out there. Merry Christmas if we don't get to see you again before the holiday season gets upon us. Thank you.